Hello, everyone, and welcome to April 22nd regular Legislative Committee meeting of the Town of Vegreville. We apologize. We did advertise this meeting is starting a few hours early. So you, those of you are going to catch it on the YouTube later, I guess. Anyway, call this meeting to order at 12 o'clock, and I'll be looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Barry's up first. Is there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor, carried. Next, I'll be looking for a motion to adopt the minutes. Look at that, Councillor Royal. Is there any errors or omissions within those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, carried. So first up, we have a delegation. Alex Bonkeski. Close? And Alex is the ATCO Stakeholder Relations Manager. So Alex, come on up to the podium there and welcome.
Thank you. Great to meet you all. Councillor McPhee, thank you for having me. I met previously with CAO Ling a couple of weeks ago and shared some information that I'm going to share with you all today about ATCO Energy Systems upcoming 2025 to 2027 transmission capital maintenance program. The goals of this program are really, as it says on the slides here, enhancing the reliability of the services that we provide while also addressing climate risk in response to some of the extreme weather events we've been experiencing over the last number of years. Okay. So just a little bit of context. Obviously, we're looking at a map of Alberta here. You'll see the striped sections. That is Alberta's Forest Protection Area, or the FPA as they call it. And then the teal sections, with the exception of Wood Buffalo National Park at the far north part of the province, that is ATCO service territory. So you'll see there's a good chunk of our service territory exists within the Forest Protection Area, but then we also have a couple of areas on the south and central east side of the province. Really what this means for ATCO is, you can see on the slide, 43% of our power line right-of-way, or almost 30,000 kilometers, is within the forest protection area. Just by comparison, AltaLink and Fortis respectively have 19 and 25% of their right-of-ways within the forest protection area. So what that means for ATCO and our customers and our stakeholders is that we experience climate risks in a completely different way than our peers do, especially with respect to wildfires. So we have seen over the last number of years devastating wildfires, largely occurring within ATCO service territory. So for our customers and our stakeholders and the company itself, we're just experiencing a different set of risks than our peers do, and recently we're experiencing those risks in a more extreme and perhaps more importantly, more unpredictable way. So we can move to the next slide. So ATCO's vision for climate adaptation and reliability, obviously we are experiencing climate extremes today that are substantially different than in the past. We've had a number of devastating wildfires over the last 10 to 15 years. 2023 set a record for the number of wildfires in the province, and then that record was subsequently beaten the following year in 2024. So we're seeing more fires, we're seeing them burn more intensely and more extreme. Aside from that, there was also that cold snap in 2023 that you might remember, which hit this part of the province particularly hard, and that put the province's power grid at risk. So not just risks from wildfires, but all sorts of weather events, including winter storms like we experienced in 2023. So we've had everything from droughts to floods to wildfires, heat waves, cold snaps in the province in the last few years, and what we're seeing, again, is more extreme weather and more unpredictability. So there have been more major outages and large-scale restoration responses required in the last 5 years than there had been in the previous 20. So the company ATCO has had to respond to extreme weather events, and so now we're proactively addressing climate risks to better be prepared for future extremes and to maintain reliable service to our customers. So our goal is more reliable service in the face of a changing, more extreme and more unpredictable climate, particularly areas in areas that have been prone to extreme weather events like the wildfires, and then on the east side of the province, east central side of the province, that winter storm that we saw a couple of years ago. So we're building up our assets to become more resilient to the impacts of extreme weather, and at the same time going for fewer service disruptions and an enhanced reliability in our services. We can go to the next slide. So in a broad sense, ATCO's climate adaptation and reliability efforts include implementing lessons learned. We've been through a lot of these extreme weather events in the last few years. We use the Incident Command System, which is an internationally recognized emergency management protocol, and we just continue to refine that Incident Command System, refine how we work with our municipal partners, our industrial partners, so we just continue to learn as we go and implement those lessons. We're also hardening our assets, which is a lot of what I'll talk about today, just making system improvements and enhancements to, again, improve that overall reliability and address climate risks. We're also using technologies and artificial intelligence in ways that we haven't before. A really good example of that is starting last fall, we initiated a pilot program using some advanced wildfire smoke detection sensors and some AI-enabled wildfire detection cameras up in the Swan Hills area. So what those do, really just sort of high-tech smoke detectors, similar to what you would have in your house, but using different technologies that can sense smoke from a wildfire really quickly and from a great distance so that we can get that notification quick and get the crews out there to fight the fires. We also have a really interesting enhanced vegetation management program that we're rolling out that, again, relies on advanced technologies, LiDAR data, imagery, satellite imagery that can actually zoom in on individual trees, tell the age of that tree, the species, and then we can model out the growth of that tree so that we can tell maybe the tree won't be a problem in a year or two, but in 3 years' time, the tree could get to a height where it could put our power lines at risk. So really trying to use technologies as best we can. And then we're also working with our peers, AltaLink and Fortis, on a wildfire mitigation plan that will ultimately feed into the provincial government's wildfire mitigation plan. So we're working together with our peers to make sure that the electricity industry is represented, has a voice, and that our unique challenges are reflected in the provincial wildfire mitigation plan. And we go to the next slide. So future work that ATCO is undertaking is our transmission capital program, and it's a broad capital program aims to enhance the system resilience and reliability while also mitigating climate risks. You may be aware any capital investments that ATCO or any other utility provider make are tied to approval by the Alberta Utilities Commission, the AUC. So any major capital work or improvements that we propose must be reviewed and approved ultimately by the AUC. So part of the reason that I'm here today is to share information with you all about our transmission capital maintenance program. As I mentioned, I spoke to CAO Ling about it previously. We want to share information, build some awareness about what ATCO is doing, and ultimately build support from our customers and our stakeholders, be they municipal or industrial, so that we can have a better, enhance our chances of having the AUC approve the work that we're proposing and ultimately get that work done to enhance the system reliability. So a lot of what I'll be telling you today is centered around climate adaptation work, but really it's about reliability. You can't really address climate risk without inherently improving the reliability of the system. So the two really do go hand in hand. Next slide. So some of the measures we have underway right now, we're undertaking a climate adaptation and vulnerability assessment. So we're working closely with a consultant to examine a range of different potential climate scenarios going into the future 25 to 55 years out, so that we can identify what might the climate look like as we go forward, and then subsequently where might ATCO's assets, operations, maintenance, management systems, where might we be at risk, so we can identify those areas of risk and then apply appropriate management systems to them. Next slide. Another thing that we're doing, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, is we have an enhanced vegetation management system that we're rolling out. And this is really reliant on technology. Gives us the opportunity to get a sense of what is happening within our right-of-ways, but also to the sides of our right-of-ways with respect to trees. So we can zoom in on individual trees, find out what their species, their age, model out their growth, and then we can identify potentially hazardous trees from the office as opposed to going out into the field. Obviously, we still do send field crews out to do inspections, but it just gives us another tool to enable us to more efficiently conduct those sweeps. Next slide. Another program that we have, and we're really going strong on this one, you may have noticed as you're driving around, a lot of the power poles nowadays look a little bit differently on the bottom 6 or 8 feet of the pole. They're a little darker in color, and what that is it's a rubberized wire mesh. For the most part, they're sourced locally, the Atchison Industrial Park in Edmonton, and it's really just a rubberized wire mesh. We wrap it around the power pole to a height of 6 or 8 feet, and then we go underground about 12 to 18 inches. So it protects power poles from fire in the event that a wildfire does roll through an area. It chokes off the oxygen supply of the fire so that the poles don't burn down. So there's 2 kind of key benefits of this. Number one, obviously the poles don't burn down. But if a fire does roll through, the poles are left standing so that we don't have to order new poles. We don't have to send crews out and specialized equipment in the event that we have to restore power. The infrastructure is still standing. So it just gives us a leg up and enhances our ability to restore power more quickly. Next slide. Another one that we're taking on pretty seriously is crossarm replacement. We're finding that these wooden crossarms are meant to have a service life of about 40 to 50 years, but in a lot of cases we're just not getting that. So we're finding that there's a lot of rot of these crossarms, these wooden crossarms from the inside. So we are in select areas where there's high risk of wildfire. We're replacing the wooden crossarms prior to the end of their service life, and like I said, we're finding a lot of them have started to rot anyway, and replacing them with composite materials or steel materials. Materials that will give us a service life closer to 80 years rather than that 40 to 50. Another benefit of this is we're removing wood, a combustible object, from a high fire risk zone. So the power poles aren't as much of a risk of fire because they're treated with different chemicals, so they're a little more safer, and we fire wrap them with that fire mesh I just mentioned. But anytime we can remove more dried out old wood from a wildfire area is obviously a good thing. So next slide. Oh, thank you so much. Excuse me. Another program that we have underway right now, more so in the central region of the province, and in this area of the province, is we're installing interface spacers in areas where we have vertically spaced power lines. So what an interface spacer is just a rigid member that we install between the power lines, vertically spaced power lines, just to maintain the distance. We found, especially in that winter storm of 2023, there was a lot of ice and snow buildup on some of these power lines. Caused some power outages. When those power lines come in contact with each other, or even when they come close, there's a fire risk. So these interface spacers, we install them in areas where we have experienced winter storms before, in high wind areas, because wind can also make those power lines come in close contact with each other. And these interface spacers just maintain that structural integrity and maintain the distance between the vertically spaced power lines. Next slide. Aside from all of those measures, ATCO has a really robust and broad wildlife mitigation program. So we install physical assets on our infrastructure. That picture on the top is just an example of a cover, a simple plastic cover we can place on our infrastructure. In the event that a bird does land on our power lines, it protects the bird, and it also keeps the power from going out. In the bottom right-hand corner, that's just that orange that yellow and green thing. That's just a bird diverter, and all it does is kind of sits on the power line, flaps in the wind a little bit, just spooks the birds away to keep them from A, flying into the power line, or B, landing on the power line. So again, it keeps the animals safe, and it enhances our ability to keep the power running. The bottom left is just a cone that we staple on, we can pin on our power poles, and that just keeps squirrels and other critters from climbing. Aside from these, we try to time all of our work to not disturb nesting season. So migratory waterfowl, we're very conscious of their nesting seasons and their movements. And so anytime we do work, we do nest sweeps, wildlife sweeps. And the way that we manage our power line right-of-ways is another way to keep wildlife away from our power infrastructure. And we can go to the next slide, please. In some cases, though, we find that we just have power lines that exist in risky areas, and maybe more so on the distribution side of things, but in situations where we have power lines in risky areas, we'll work with the landowner to identify the best solution, whether that's to put a plastic covering over the line, to reroute the line, or in worst case scenario, we can bury the line. But again, we work with landowners to determine what is the best situation, best solution. Okay, next slide, please. So for future work, that's sort of an overview of ATCO's 2025 to 27 transmission capital maintenance program. Hopefully, it gives you a bit of a sense of the scope and the scale of the type of work, the projects that we're hoping to undertake. Ultimately, as I mentioned, the goal of this program is to enhance the reliability of the services that we provide and the resilience of the assets that we have on the ground. So again, the work is particularly important in this face of increasingly unpredictable and extreme weather events that we've been facing. And so we're just looking to share information with our customers and our stakeholders like you folks, raise awareness, and ultimately to potentially build support for our program. So as I mentioned before, when we mitigate climate risks, we ultimately improve the reliability of the service that we provide and the resilience of our assets. So we can flip on to the next slide. And that was all I had for you. I want to thank you very much for your time, and thanks for having me out.
Okay, well, we might have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Anybody? Well, my question, go ahead, Councillor Rudy.
Sorry, Your Worship. I wanted to go back to the beginning just to clarify. You said 43% of the forestry protected areas are in your jurisdiction?
43% of our power line right-of-way
opposite.
is in the forest protection area. Yeah, so we have a large footprint in the FPA, especially in comparison to our peers. So a lot of our operations do occur in the forest protection area.
So just to tag on to that, I appreciate you coming and sharing some of the measures that you're taking, just speaking with some of the other municipalities that have tried to reestablish their businesses and their residents after calamities like the fires and the floods that have been happening more frequently. It is a real challenge when there aren't services there, and the redundancy in the system will be ultimately benefiting us all because we can't afford to keep rebuilding.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I can add on to that a little bit. So part of the program is hardening the assets so that the assets are more able to withstand events like this, but also to improve the resilience. So we've got stronger, more hardened assets that are remaining in place. So that makes restoration efforts, if something does happen, makes restoration efforts just that much easier. We're also doing some work on the supply chain end of things. We find that a lot of this equipment is very specialized and takes a really long lead time. So we're taking a proactive approach to ensuring that we have a stock of some of the more in-demand materials in the event that we do have to restore.
Go ahead, Councillor Wilma.
I'm just wondering, thank you very much, first of all. This was really helpful, kind of wrap our mind around what projects you're looking at going forward. If the regulator does approve as you kind of are planning to present, do you have a rough costing of how you think that will impact back, whether it's percentage or will it be in distribution? Because that's, of course, what everybody talks to us about is distribution charges. Yeah,
so it's not as simple as if we do work in municipality A, their bills will go up by X%. I can't give you an idea of impacts to your bills because part of the reason is we don't know what exactly the projects will be going forward. I can give you sort of an order of magnitude estimate, and I would stress estimate, that our regulatory folks have shared with us. And that's for every $100 million that's invested in the provincial grid, the Alberta Electricity System Operator revenue requirement would go up by less than 0.5%. So we're not anticipating significant impacts to bills at all. But again, just sort of a ballpark figure, for every $100 million we invest, in order to recoup that revenue, about a 0.5% increase in the transmission side of rates.
Okay, so Alex, the big question is, when we see these disasters that are the result of climate change and the forest fires, do all Albertans pay, or just ask ATCO customers on your lines?
Yeah, well, we don't bill back directly, right? So when we're restoring, typically it's not a direct bill to a municipality. So all of the electricity providers in the province invest in, contribute, and maintain the provincial transmission grid, which is really what we're talking about here, is the transmission side of things. So some of that is borne by the taxpayer, obviously, through the provincial taxes and that sort of thing. And then once we do have to go in and make upgrades to the system, those are recovered on a broader scale. That revenue recoup 0.5% that I mentioned, that's sort of how those costs are dealt with, is when we have to go in and restore. There's obviously investments that are made into the system, and those have to be recouped at a broader scale, and that's on the transmission side.
Well, we're sort of behind the 8 ball as ATCO customers to begin with when it comes to the transmission side. I mean, we're about 6 customers per kilometer, and we know that TransAlta and EPCOR and them are about 600. So it's not really fair, especially when, let's say, ATCO is servicing Swan Hills, Wood Buffalo, where all these big mega projects, MD of Bonnyville, everybody gets to reap the benefit from those resources, the revenues they create, but they don't have to pitch in for those initial lines and stuff. And so we're always trying to talk to the government about making it more fair. I mean, you guys are servicing all these major projects. And again, when we see these climate change disasters happening, and then it's a benefit to everybody. So we are always pushing hard against the government to try to make it more fair for ATCO to be able to play to be in at least a level field with some of the other providers. And we're not getting very far. But as far as support for you guys, you're here today looking for with the AUC, I mean, it just makes common sense that if we can harden these lines and better be defensive, on these climate changes that we're seeing, then we'll support it.
Great, I appreciate that.
So I guess we could reach out to the AUC through a letter, or you can let us know how you'd like to see that done, or.
Might be best if I follow up with CAO Ling and maybe coordinate with her, if that works.
Okay, well, I'm sure that's the way it's going to work. But is there any other questions for Ellen? Okay, well, we appreciate everything that ATCO does, and one other question. Do you guys ever think about making the right-of-ways even wider for your big transmission lines, or is it?
That is that's a good question, and it's an ongoing conversation that we're having with the province right now. I believe there was a resolution raised at the Rural Municipalities of Alberta this past fall, I think it was, around that point exactly, and I think it was MD of Lesser Slave River raised that around potentially widening some of the right-of-ways. So it's an ongoing conversation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's no more questions. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay, next up, Manager Bakawecki.
Good afternoon. I'm here today to present the quarterly progress update for IT services in the administration department. So the purpose of this project was to update our IT systems and also transition to a new service provider. The budget for this project is $16,354 a month, with some expected additional costs just due to changeover of the new service provider. Currently, we are on track on this project. The project started January 2025 and it is still ongoing. The cost to date is $46,423, which was incurred from January 1st to March 31st. This amount is within our total budget. As for the progress, service has been met or exceeded our expectations. The new service provider has been very good to deal with, and they are very prompt with all of our IT issues we have in the administration office. Currently, we are continuing the onboarding stages of transitioning. So this includes transitioning all of our software subscriptions, updating email signatures, etc. Moving forward, we will continue the onboarding process and move towards updating our IT systems and our server. So we will continue to track the service and the value add being provided by our new providers. Which brings me to project number 2 in the administration department, which is updating the server and warranty of the server. So the purpose of this project was to replace redundancy within the server. The budget was $8,000. We are on track. We expected this project to take place after our onboarding that I discussed in project 1. So as of today, we have spent none of our budget on this project. As for the progress update, we are still in phase 1 of the onboarding that was discussed in project 1. Moving forward, we will be discussing the server upgrade with our new service providers and switching it over. You will see more progress in the next project update as we are transitioning out of the onboarding stage. Thank you.
Any questions for Manager Makowicki? Go ahead, Councillor Burns.
Thank you for the update. It's nice to see you here. The IT services, I know that when we had made the decision to try the new provider, is there some sort of, I'm happy to hear that it's going well from your point of view. No snafus on our end except for some updates and some signatures. But more importantly, do we have a contract length and or do we have a time to be able to evaluate whether or not that contract changeover has been effective? Do we have that in our contract with the new provider? I'm not sure if you can answer that.
I can speak to that. So we have signed in for a 3-year contract with the new provider. And I don't know of anyone that would let us back out if we aren't meeting expectations. I don't know if that's what you're asking, if there's a clause where if we're not happy, we can go back.
That, and also if there's a way to be able to evaluate, do we have metrics in place to be able to determine if this was in fact the right move, so that we can keep track of that as we move forward. Obviously, time marches quickly when you're talking about something that supports all the rest of the business that we do.
Absolutely. We are also looking at updating our IT, what do we call it? Our IT master plan. So those metrics will be looked at in that matter. One good indication of how things have been working well for us are the that IT attack that we had early in the year. So we were able to mitigate that, and I know that that is what caused most of the strife with some of our computers not working and updating, is because we implemented some policies and practices during that attack that caused some work interruptions for others. So it's unfortunate that that happened right in the first month that they came onboarded, but we are keeping track of things and metrics that we have been wanting to improve and taking a look at even some of the IT service times, etc. So, yes.
So one of the reasons that we decided to change companies was we were not happy with their service. They were not being available when we needed them. And how are we looking at that today? Is this new provider helping when we need it?
Yeah, I think I can speak for everyone in the administration office when I say this. When we are sending any IT issues we have to their help desk account, it is either getting responded to that day or shortly after, depending on the severity. If it's something very important, which we have had, such as payroll on Thursday, everything is getting rushed. They're calling us, they're reaching out. On the other hand, as we're moving through these onboarding processes, such as the signature change, that project seemed to be a bigger feat than all of us thought it would be. And they were nothing but enjoyable and very efficient to work with. Every time I reached out with anyone's signature, they were on top of it and fixed it immediately. So far, no complaints on our end.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. That is kind of good to hear, of course, that they're answering well. And I guess the thing I'd be watching for in the next little while, because another one of our concerns before was when we were needing something fixed, then being billed for that. So I guess that would be a thing I'd be watching for, is that, you know, it is within what they said they could offer us, not that we were getting continual large additional bills with that. So there'd be, I guess that would be one thing. And on the signature side, it's been a little, I don't like the signatures. I'm going to be honest with you. I'd like to see a signature. If there's a way to ever have that changed, that'd be my preference. I absolutely hate sending something off and hoping it doesn't glitch, especially when we found out that a few of us had been sending emails for a while with no signature. So I know that isn't the case. Mine does send, but yeah, just as a side note, if they have a way to put that back in, I've never sent anything without a signature that you can't see and don't like it.
Have we seen any project cards? Go ahead, Director Saskia.
I can answer that one. So they are very stringent with their billing. Any device or like subscription or anything that is actually going to require the town itself to pay an additional bill. I have one contact at the provider that sends me a quote, and without my signed quote, we never see a different invoice from them. So there have been quotes for things, because obviously with the changeover, the firewalls or other issues that they have identified, there has been some cleanup. Those have been signed quotes, and obviously because the service provider is at a lower cost than our budget, because we budgeted based on our prior provider, I do have a little bit of wiggle room to sign, like, for an additional lease or whatever we need to for the interim. So obviously, like, these aren't huge dollar items, but like, you know, a $3,000 switch or something that they needed to operate effectively. So those are all coming through me, and I have not seen any invoice that I haven't pre-signed off for in advance.
And the price looks pretty good, about 18,000 the first 3 months.
Yeah.
Be close to 70,000 a year if we keep it this rate, which is good. Okay, any more questions for Manager Makawaki? No. Okay, well, thank you very much for the update, and we look forward to your next one. Next up, FCS Manager Gosling. Hey, easy. What's going on? Fumble fingers.
Hello.
Hello.
I am here just to make a request, and to share a little bit about our National Volunteer Week plan for 2025. This year, we're planning an appreciation barbecue dinner. The theme this year for National Volunteer Week, that runs from April 27th to May 4th, is Volunteers Make Waves. Together, we create ripples of change. In the past year, we've hosted a smaller event. It's a lunch that we've put on. Last year it was at the Social Center. But feedback suggests that we shift the event till June after farming season and make it more accessible for after hours so everybody can join us. The event, when we've had it during the lunch hour, we have seen our numbers really dwindle, and we've only had one demographic that really shows up for that volunteer event, and it's great, and we appreciate those folks that come out, but we'd like to make sure that it's accessible to all volunteers in our community. So this year we're planning a big barbecue on June 18th at the Vegreville Centennial Library. We're hoping to have it outdoors if the weather cooperates, so just in the back. There would be a picnic area set up, there'd be some games. We were hoping to have some entertainment. And we're expecting 300 people. That's what we're planning for this year with the outdoor barbecue. Oh, also there would be a photo booth, and we're hoping that elected officials would be able to come out and serve for the meal. This would be very similar to the Family Day event that we had. So same setup where our community members would come in, enjoy the meal, and be able to hang out and enjoy the entertainment. So pretty much the same, only but at the library this year. We're also running a social media campaign that would inspire others and highlight current volunteer opportunities and a recruitment booth at the event. So that would be set up in the gymnasium there. So we'd have some space for people to sit in the gym and then the outdoor space as well. So funding-wise, FCSS received $1,200 from Volunteer Alberta, and we'll use those dollars towards the barbecue, but it doesn't quite cover for the amount of people that we're hoping to host on that day. So our request is $750 from Town Council to help cover the food and the advertising. We were also requesting waiving rental and setup fees for the library, and requesting at least 5 council members to come and help serve at the barbecue. And we also have asked the County of Minburn already, and they are on board to come and serve for that day. So the 3 options for council is to provide both financial and volunteer support, provide volunteer support only, or not support the event, in which case FCSS will still host, but on a smaller scale. And that is my request today.
So your communication strategy is a letter from the mayor's office. I think you meant Leslie. Well, I mean, that's nice, and the county is willing to come and help as well.
They are, yep. We talked about it at one of our board meetings, and it was suggested by the county rep that we look at doing it in June after farming season.
So you would maybe see some volunteers from Old Vegreville at this event, from Ranfurly, and from other places.
That's what we're
outside
hoping.
of town. Yeah.
We're hoping, yeah. We're going to advertise, so we do have an advertising campaign that will be in Vegreville and the county as well. It would, and FCSS does serve the county of Minburn, so that's part of our funding area.
Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Worship. The only thing that I need to know is what time to what time are you planning to do the barbecue? Because I have a couple of meetings that same day.
Oh, for sure. Setup would be in the afternoon, and then serving, we're hoping to have the barbecue around, it would start about 4:30, and we'd wrap up by 7.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Duncan.
Fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I'm very excited you picked that day. Unfortunately, I'll be fishing.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, it sounds really good, and I think you're right that the way it was set up before, there was one demographic that was able to come. It just didn't work timing-wise. Glad to see that the county's already going to provide people as well, so that should be a lot for serving and help. I guess two questions. One is, did we also have a financial ask of the county? And secondly, for it, I know you're asking us for cooking. Is it like some of our past stuff where we are also organizing the picking up of the food, or it would be just coming to assist with the cooking and serving?
Good question. We have the men's shed that have volunteered to do the cooking. They prefer to do the cooking, so that's why we have the serving for our counselors. Yeah, and picking up. I also thought counselors would want to go around and just thank volunteers, and so picking up and cleaning up as you're speaking to volunteers and thanking them in the community would be helpful as well. So, yeah, yeah.
Well, I don't see anybody that probably can't make it.
Oh, just on that second part, was there the financial ask of the county as well?
Of the county, they are getting the same letter. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, well, I think sounds good to us. I mean, anytime anytime we ever recognize a volunteer in our community, it's a step forward. So.
Yeah. So, but just to be clear, during Volunteer Week, we're doing a social media campaign. So we'll still be recognizing volunteers during that week, but then our big celebration will be in June, based on what was suggested. I also wanted to mention that the co-op has donated a $100 gift card to put towards the event. And then, like I mentioned, the Men's Shed has offered to come and help, even though they're volunteers themselves. But we're trying not to have as many volunteers as part of the planning and the serving for a volunteer appreciation event. But they so graciously volunteered to do that. And then we have one group that is said they're going to put a donation towards the event. So we put it out to all nonprofits to make a donation. However, we've only heard back from one group. That's why they asked from the town. And if we do get more donations, then it could be up to $750. Obviously, we're not asking for any more than what the event would cost. So this just helps us with the planning process so we can move forward.
Well, then I think you can expect a letter from my office.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Worship. If I'm going to jump to my round table for a split second here, if you don't mind, because while you're here, I had a phone call from an elderly lady who wanted to thank our support of FCSS, and I assured her that it was the volunteers that run the tax program. She was able to have her taxes done this year with the tax program that's offered through there, and was very, very appreciative of that service being available to her. Great. So I just wanted to pass that on while you were here.
I will be sure to share that with our volunteers and our coordinator as well. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Hey, thank you. Okay, up next, Manager Kuznick.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I see we have another request from the Rangers for dressing room number 4 for the use for the 2024-2025 season. You want me to read the letter, or?
I think we've all read it. It's basically what we've seen at the end of last year. They will be making application to host provincials. They would like to have their logo at center ice. Yeah, so this letter will be read at the Monday's council meeting, and we'll receive and file it then.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry to interrupt. This particular letter, although it's not dated, has been received and filed back on January 13th.
Oh, this is the same letter then?
This is the same letter, just they asked it to be brought forward as a reminder on the request, because they're hosting the 2020, they are putting an application in to host the 2026 provincials.
Okay, so we said no in January to the full-time dressing room and stuff, but they would like to resubmit the letter again for our consideration
Yes.
as they make application for
Yes,
hosting
that is
the
my,
provincials.
that is my understanding, but I will,
Well, I guess I would say when they submitted in January, they were asking for the dressing room for the remainder of the season, and we said no then. This is them going forward, and we did say at that time that we would sit down and have a discussion at the end of, end of the season, which I think is a good thing that got brought forward, because what we've seen in the past sometimes is that two things have happened where letters from different groups have come forward, and then there's a long time before either they're answered or we're able to go forward, and that's what causes the problems and the animosity, or people feeling that certain groups are answered or
You
not.
don't think it's sometimes they don't get what they ask for causes animosity?
But in fairness to
Because
them,
I see that happening too.
I know that can happen, but in fairness to them, I do remember when we had that discussion in January, we did say we would rediscuss it so that they knew what they could plan for going forward in the year. So I would say that's the reason why, now that hockey's basically wrapped up and everything, they're probably looking at it again. And as we know, I think that that same planning is coming from multiple groups, and we've met, you and I met not that long ago, even with minor hockey, and the talk about there needing to be the plan forward. So I think that's probably where that spurred from.
Okay, so we are gonna have a larger conversation with the other requests that are coming in. And hopefully that'll be sooner than later. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead, Councilor Lemko.
Yeah, Your Worship, just referring to the letter again, reading the very first sentence, stating we are writing to you today to request the dedicated use of dressing room 4 for the Junior B Rangers Hockey Club for the upcoming 24-25 season. This would date it back to prior to being addressed now, so it's not saying the 25-26 season. It is saying the
Yeah, but they have, the CEO Ling has said they've asked to have the letter resubmitted, so, I mean, I take it, their request, after what Councilor Raw reminded us, we did say for this year, no, that we would take an overall look at it, when we had more information about what user groups are gonna be here, so.
Can I ask a generalist question? I just have a general question, not about their specific, but about all of our facility user groups. I know there's a difference between like for-profit groups that have contracts and whatnot, but in general, just any of our user groups, I know if we rented the pool and say the upstairs, you have like a contract that you have to sign. Do any of our big user groups that use multiple things, figure skating, everything, are they ever given like a user's agreement that their president or rep would have? Some communities do, so I'm just wondering what we have, or what we do.
Not at this time. They're given a code of conduct, but not an actual user agreement, which is something we're looking at doing, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you, because that's something that I think there might be some confusion as to what even somebody might be asking for, because obviously contract can sometimes be different, but I think it is a good thing going forward if each and every user group, and they're not all going to be exactly the same because they're using different types of things, but I think any user group knowing what your expectation is a good thing. I know that one other community, and I'm only saying this from the standpoint of somebody who had a summer team and booked summer ice, one of the things that was in our user group that went to our youth group was that other than participants being on the ice, that the user group was agreeing that there'd be no minors left in the facility unattended. Like, those types of things are in some, because we do see areas where one child's on the ice and they just drop other youth off and it becomes like a babysitting center and there isn't an adult necessarily there. That was something that was in a user group thing that I had to sign when we went in, acknowledging that when the player was on the ice, all other youth associated with the group were responsibility of a parent. So it's not a terrible thing to have in place.
No, I mean, anytime that there's a contract. I mean, today, I mean, in the past, we've always operated, you know, basically with the same groups, right? And,
Yeah.
And then even as their boards change and stuff, we always, our expectation was always the same. But that being said, like having
A user
something,
agreement is
some sort of a contract about how things will go.
Yeah.
Is not a bad idea.
No, and I've dealt with them before in the past too, so.
Yeah. maybe saves us problems in the backside of it, right? If you said ahead of time, you know, even things like, you know, if something's happens or damaged during a time, whose responsibility it becomes. Because I know that, like, even with ours and the stuff I did in the summer, there was actually a quick sweep done of the dressing rooms, for example. And if my team would have damaged the dressing room, it didn't become an oh well facility dealt with it. I mean, not something like a plugged toilet, like those things are a little bit different, but an actual damage directly went back to me as a user.
Okay, so we are gonna have a larger conversation about this, in the near future. Okay, thank you very much. Next up, Director Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. The topic is subdivision application 25 TOW 002 to review the subdivision application and approve the process to proceed. Okay, background: on April 15th, 2025, Planning and Development created an application for subdivision approval to subdivide 14 single dwelling residential lots into 28 medium density residential lots for proposed duplexes. Communication strategy, level 2 inform. Once approved to proceed with the process, a subdivision authority officer will, as per the Municipal Government Act, send notification of the subdivision application to the government departments, persons, and local authorities as required by the subdivision development regulation, the adjacent landowners, and post on the town's website and social media. Two options are: the town council review the subdivision application and approve the process to proceed, or to council to deny the request, and of course would give reasons why.
Okay, conversation will start with Councillor Rudick.
Thank you very much for bringing this forward. As it's clear here, we did have a meeting last week to discuss the elements as you described them in the rezoning. And there were just a couple thoughts that came forward from the group as we discussed things. It seems really to match what's being currently in the neighborhood as well as what will be there in the future. And one of the things that maybe came up when we were having the discussions is some uniformity in a couple elements, such as the fencing, just to ensure that, for example, the very south end of the parcel of land is maybe protected from creep, namely the type of expansion that some neighborhoods have had and some challenges that we've had as an organization in terms of neighborhoods that have sort of expanded past their boundary. I know that that's a discussion that could be had with your office and the developer potentially, because we have not had a large number of developers in the past. We haven't had those covenants attached to land titles, but that might be something that would be worth a conversation. That was one that came up, as well as ensuring that, for example, the placement of access to our services and ensuring that municipal services, both the road and the waste collection, would continue to be, I'll say congruent again, that it would match what we currently offer in that site. And that this might also be an opportunity for us as an organization to hold some of the public hearings. We usually have our hearings here in this office. And lucky for us, we had a large attendance at our last public hearing, but it might be a good opportunity to be able to hold this hearing elsewhere, possibly at the location of the neighbor. The Sunshine Club would be a natural location to be able to allow those folks to maybe take a look. If it was possible for your office to accommodate that, it might give an opportunity for citizens that were interested in taking a view firsthand, in real time, be able to address and see what's being proposed potentially in that area. No different than when we did the commercial open house on the 75th Street. So those are some of the thoughts that were discussed in that meeting. Generally, most of the attendees were very interested and excited to see this opportunity, particularly given the location and the need for both businesses and those that live in town currently and have not been able to come to town because of lack of housing. So thank you very much for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Councillor Rawa. Rudick, I'm on a lot of Advil right now.
So, this subdivision application is, yeah? It's for, to turn 14 single lots into 28 lots. And this was part of the last public hearing that had to do with the rezoning. So at that public hearing, there was some comments made that the type of housing that they proposed, and there was some comments that some residents had heard at one of our meetings by a developer, what they were wanting to build was a bunch of triplexes, row housing. And we did bring it up at the public hearing that for that to go through with and we did rezone it R3, there would be checks and balances in our process. And that one of those checks and balances is parking. So, looking at what the proposal is today for duplexes, not triplexes, will meet the parking challenges that'll be there. So I just want those that are watching and those that had such a problem with this type of affordable housing in this neighborhood to know that the question was asked of myself, how could council not know what they were putting in there? And we said we've been asked to rezone it and to see what their plan would be. So we now know what the plan will be. It'll be 28 in the lots made out of 14. Is there any other comments regarding this subdivision? Okay. So we will see this at Monday's meeting.
That is correct.
Thank you. You have another one.
I do. This is for the amending the land use bylaw. So the background is the land use committee gathered on April 17th, 2025 to discuss the proposed rezoning within the town of Vegreville. Lots 23, 25, 26, and 27, Plan 1320943, from institutional to medium-density residential district. Prior to the approval, the Land Use Committee has suggestions to consider. Provide recommended parking spaces as calculated from Land Use Bylaw 11, 2019, 3.11 to avoid overflow into the Sunshine Club's parking lot. The second is fence recommendation of south lots running west to east to avoid conflicts with encroachment on a town-owned land, and then determine garbage and recycling, disposal, rollout, dumpster, etc. Upon review and discussion, the Land Use Committee recommends moving forward with the proposed rezoning process to create areas within the town that promote medium density and more affordable housing options for residents of Vegreville. The communication strategy, level 4, is involve, consult, and collaborate. After a successful first reading, advertising will be set for 2 consecutive weeks online and in the local paper. A public hearing will then be scheduled for May 26, 2025, with the opportunity for second and third reading being held on May 26, 2025, at the regular scheduled council meeting. Again, council's options are to review this bylaw and move forward with the process, or number 2, to review and deny and provide reasons why.
Okay. This, again, process will start at Monday's meeting. Is there any questions regarding this rezoning application? Or, sorry, recommendation? Go ahead, Councilor Rudy.
Take my comments from the last and put it to this one. Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse everybody. Yeah, actually, I think maybe that is probably helpful for not only me, but for anybody that was listening. I think the challenge that your department has streamlined a little bit is the complexity of doing the subdivision and the rezoning and making sure that we're able to be responsive and ensure that developers and residents get the answers that they need quickly, was evident in the presentation that was made at that meeting. So I apologize for confusing anybody. But in summary, please take the last comments, put it to this one, And I think, your worship's comment about ensuring that the public feels reassured that there is a very definite process that we follow is evident in the number of steps that need to continue on here. And I also want to just take a nod, when you're talking about the communication strategy, level 4, nice to see that from another department, that it's reaching into the operations, that there is a seamless transition, ensuring that we continue to have good communication with our public, which is part of the intention always, so that people feel reassured all along in the process. No different than the last subdivision that a lot of people were upset about, maybe unnecessarily because they didn't understand the process. And again, I would encourage anybody that is interested to attend a public hearing, but us sitting at this table are always interested in hearing people's comments, as long as it's done respectfully and with facts.
Well, I do believe that's the most important part about a public hearing, is you get to hear the facts. A lot of people call it the truth, but appreciate your comments. So go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
I just thought that's well laid out for everybody to see, and for the public listening in, feel free, if you're not totally sure what you're looking at, just feel free to reach out to one of us on council. I'm sure we could help you out to understand it if you want more clarification on it. But I personally think it's a good move for everybody going forward in this community, so I welcome anyone's call.
Okay, so these both will be at Monday's meeting, and we'll get the process started. I think we may be done with you, Director Lefebvre.
Yep.
Now we're moving on to Director Saskew and the tax penalty bylaw.
Oh, 10.1 is the financials.
Oh, sorry.
Do you want to start with those?
Let's do it.
So all of council has their hand out, and this is the draft financial statements. I will collect them after this because these don't even have a draft stamp on them. So I will collect those back from you, and you'll have the official statements next Monday. Should we not note anything that needs to drastically be changed today, unfortunately, due to accounting principles and other rules that we have to follow, we don't have a lot of means to change things that you may or may not like in the statement. So unfortunately, I say that you can choose to adopt them or not, but really there's not a lot of choice. There is also an attachment in the meeting agenda which has some of my written variances out. So I'm going to start off with the consolidated statement of financial position, which is on page 2. So in 2024, the town's net debt position increased to 11.8 million from 9.56 million, which is a restated number in 2023. One thing to note during this presentation, everything that I'm referring to in 2023 is a restated balance because we adopted the asset retirement obligation after that study that we underwent last fall. So when we're saying restated, the only changes, we'll go through in the notes what changes there were, but the changes that are made for the restatement are all related to the asset retirement obligation. So
Just to be clear, we did not debenture that money in 2024.
that is correct.
Okay.
So that I will touch on too. So I have that in my notes. So our net debt position increased in 2024. This is largely as a result of decreased cash position offset by increases in accounts receivable and a decrease to account payable and deferred revenue. So the decrease in accounts payable is largely attributable to payment of holdbacks for construction on Prosperity Industrial Park. So as we know, that park was substantially completed by the developer in 2024. So as a result of that, we had several large holdback repayments. So that's why our accounts payable is down. Those amounts have been paid back to the developer. The net debt financial position indicates that the town does not have sufficient financial assets to repay its liabilities as of December 31st, 2024. However, it is important to note that the long-term debt of $9.46 million is not all currently due and has scheduled repayment terms that stretch over the next 25 years. So the town's current debt repayment obligation on December 31st, 2024 is approximately $685,509. So if you take the 11.8 million net debt and then you subtract out the let's just call it 9 million, we're only 2 million net debt. And we will get to that in the statement of assets coming forward, or the statement of financial position. Liabilities or financial assets. So the town's financial assets of 8.76 million decreased by approximately 4.4 million in 2024. This is comprised of a decrease of 572,000 in land held for resale due to sales of Foxview and 75th Street lots. So that's very exciting. The remaining decrease is due to a decreased cash position as a result of the completion of Prosperity Park and a lot of the forced main. So note that the cash position will be replenished with the pulling of debentures in 2025, as the mayor had alluded to. The delay in the debenture was due to us wanting to know what the actual final costs were for the forced main, as well as the favorable interest rates that the province is offering to municipalities starting the spring of 2025. So I know our cash position looks slightly dire. As always, we are being prudent to make sure that we're meeting our cash obligations. We've done different budgets for interim budgets on the financial side of things to make sure that we had cash to cover our operations until we pulled the debenture or until our tax deadline. So as you know, it's April 22nd right now. Starting mid-May, we're going to start getting a lot of tax payments. So our cash position is in a place where we have supported not pulling that debenture in 2024. And what we hope that means is significant decrease in the cost to service the debt for the forced mains. So 1% interest rate makes a huge difference in the total amount that is paid over the term of the loan. So we are waiting till we have official confirmation that those favorable rates are coming in. I don't actually even know what percentage they are giving us as a break. But stay tuned. The debenture will be pulled sometime this year, and our cash position will be back into where it normally is, as well as the tax. With the taxes coming in the next month or two, we should be absolutely fine. A couple other things to note. So investments. So interest earned on 2024 investments and cash equivalents. It's approximately $326,455. So last year it was $335,000. So it's slight decrease this year. As we know, prime rates were decreasing in the second half of 2024. For liabilities, the town's 2024 financial liabilities decreased by 2.16 million to 20.56 million. This is primarily due to the repayment of debt and holdbacks on construction projects. Accounts payable decreased by 1.1 million at the end of 2024. This change is a result of the holdback payables. And then accrued employee obligations, that one I'm going to touch on, they remain stable, so at approximately 374,000. These obligations consist of vacation and sick leave. Moving right along, so deposit liabilities.
Could you repeat that again?
Employee obligations?
Yeah.
The accrued employee obligations are accrued vacation and sick leave.
Well, if they're not sick, we wouldn't.
No, so the sick leave, we still have to, anything that people have in their bank has to be accrued on the financial statement. So at the termination, we have this in our note. So if somebody is terminated or leaves their position, we never pay out their sick time, but that sick time is available. And if every single one of us got sick and took all of our sick time and vacation time, it would cost the town, as of right now, $374,000. So we have to note it on the financial statements. Never at any point in time does sick leave become payable as a mass lump sum. So somebody would have to be sick and actually take all their sick time. And then because we have short-term and long-term, if somebody's sick for more than 5 days in a row, that's when that triggers our payroll and HR department to start contacting people, forcing for doctor's notes and getting onto short-term disability. So the sick leave is never a huge risk to the town that we would have to pay out those full banks, but they are available to staff. So they have to be
We have
booked.
to carry that in our financial statement.
Absolutely, yes.
It's a given. Wow.
Yeah, so everyone's
That's-
bank,
Okay.
yes. Like I said,
I never thought about that before, that. The negative.
Yes, so that's a balance that we owe to staff, but as I had noted, vacation time is payable whether we like it or not, so if somebody leaves their position or vacates their job, we have to pay out their full vacation time. Sick leave is non-vesting, so to say, so at any point in time, if somebody leaves their position or if we terminate them, we do not pay out the remainder of their sick balance.
There's no sick days at the end of our fiscal year. They don't carry them over.
They are carried over, so they're earned, there's a maximum. So the way that our employee policy reads right now, and staff earn their hours per month to a maximum of so many hours. So it's 7 or 12 days, depending if they're an 8-hour or a 7-hour work week. And then once they're at their max, they don't earn. So I have a maximum sim bank right now. I don't earn any sick time unless I actually take it, so.
Well, I'm saying at the end of our fiscal year, everybody starts over, right?
No, that is not how our policy reads right now. That's something that we can look into moving forward, but
Okay.
So just to clarify, so like, I'm just making up the 10 just so that we have something easy in our head. So if it was 10 days that you had and you didn't use it, you can't accrue more than the 10, I get that. But in January, theoretically,
10.
if you didn't do there, at the end of December of the next year, you could technically have 20?
no, you would only ever just have 10.
Okay, then it doesn't actually, well, I mean, it carries over till you get to that point.
Yeah.
But once you accrue the new ones, you technically lose them.
You don't even, you don't accrue anything new. So if you're 10 at December
Yeah.
and you don't take any sick time, you don't earn any days during the year. So you only earn it when you've taken some.
That's what I was asking, like if somebody for 10 years didn't take their days, theoretically, any of them, and then they left at the end of 10 years.
If they weren't sick.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, we can't say that they take a day because it's only if you're sick.
That's correct.
Correct.
Yeah, so
but
your
but
maximum bank
theoretically,
is
they
10.
wouldn't have added up 100 days they could take at the end of 10 years.
And our policy used to be like that. People just earned every
Yes.
single day. They earned, or every single month they earned their day or whatever it was. And some people had sim banks that were huge. So that was something that was changed when I was still auditor. And then that's when we put the maximum. And then, so now people earn up to the maximum, and then that's as high as they can stay. So
Okay.
they don't,
I
they
just
don't earn
didn't
past.
show, I never thought we'd actually carry that in our financial statement.
Yes,
As a deficit. Okay.
yeah, so
Go
it's
ahead,
a debt
Councilor
owed.
Thank you. Just to clarify the statement that you said, when somebody leaves, we pay them out full vacation, but we only pay them out what they've accrued up until the day that they left.
Correct, yes. So whatever is in their vacation bank, we have to pay out vacation and any overtime payable. But in sick time, if somebody leaves, they do not get paid out for sick time.
That's right.
We write off that balance.
And I guess too, one other question is, I know we've been pushing to make sure that employees are taking their vacation throughout the year, and we've had some, again, that were accrued quite a bit. How's it going in getting those employees to make sure they're taking their vacation and getting the time off that they need?
It is going well. Actually, I have that in a note coming up on my notes, so I can show you guys that directly. So if you stay tuned.
Jumped the gun, sorry.
Yeah. No, those are all good questions. Those are all things that I was prepared for, so. Moving right along, so deposit liability. So we have $32,650 as a deposit liability, and those are deposits on land held for sale at Prosperity Park and 75th Street. So very exciting. Both of those sales have now closed. So the ones that we had as of December 31st, those sales have both closed. So the Prosperity Park lot and the 75th lot are officially, the money is in our pocket as of 2025. So that's very exciting. And those are now off the books. Deferred revenue, $543,000 versus $1.18 million last year. So we have spent a lot of our grant money. So that's money that we've received for grants, including CCBF, MSI, GTF, like all of those government grants that we get. We have incurred our projects this year and spent it. We actually have a grant receivable due to the timing of some of the payments. So especially with LGFF this year, they've changed some of their rules as to when your grant conditions and funding has been met. So since then, I have sorted that all out. So we're actually expecting $1 million from LGFF by the end of this month. So exciting, and that'll also help our cash balance, so.
And all of our other provincial tax was collected for the year?
Yes, that was paid in the fall, I believe. After the deadline, but sooner than December this year, so that was nice to see. Long-term debt, you can see, has been steadily decreasing year over year. We have not pulled a debenture since the RCMP new builds. So we will be pulling one in 2025 once I'm very sure that we're going to get those favorable rates. And then possibly rates will decrease from there. So the next one here is asset retirement obligation. So this refers to note 12. We'll go into it more in detail, but the 7.47 million, that is our asset retirement obligation. So this was not on our statements in the same way last year. This is big. So this is for our landfill lagoon and all of our buildings. So any of our buildings, basically anything constructed before 1991 is likely to have some components that will require us to have some extra costs if we ever demolished the building or renovated it. So the grand total of this whole project was almost 7.5 million. So we'll get into that in the coming pages. And then for non-financial assets, we have tangible capital assets. So those are the town's capital assets. So that's buildings, engineered structures, machinery and equipment, and vehicles, and land. So we have increased our TCA this year. As you know, we've had many ongoing projects. So that is always good. It's one of the indicators that we've had with the government, those financial indicators where we actually were lacking, where our TCA wasn't growing fast enough. So hopefully with some of these projects, that'll help us going forward meet that indicator. And then, pardon me, we have inventory, prepaids, and land held for development. No major changes there. So if there's no questions, let's move on to statement of operations. So that's page 3. So this is our revenue and expenditures for the year. As you can see on the first subtotal, our budgeted revenues for the year were 18.46 million, and our actual was 19.27 million. So we were over budget by 800,679. So parts of that were investment income. We're always prudent with budgeting our investment income. We don't want to create a deficit by not earning a good enough rate of return. So we don't ever know exactly what is going to happen with prime, and with our large account balances, a 1% decrease makes a big difference. So as you can see, for investment income in 2024, we had 326,000, and then in 2023 we had 535,000. So just those couple late decreases to prime had a $200,000 difference. Also, cash balance changed between those 2 years as well. So moving on to expenditures. So our expenditures were on budget by 3508. So our budget was 20,995,000, and our actual was 20,991,000. So sorry, 3.5 million. And other items here. So we have contributed assets in 2023, that 918,000. That was the contributed asset from Rotary. So that was the bike and skate park. This year, we have a loss on tangible capital assets, 6,300. So those were from our manhole replacement projects. So there was one manhole that we replaced that still had $6,000 of depreciation to go. So it wasn't a fully amortized asset, but obviously it was in poor shape and had to be replaced. And government transfers for capital, you can note that the current year versus the prior year is substantially different, and that was because in 2023 we did a substantial portion of Prosperity Park, and so we had some extra grants for that. So that was our normal allocated grants, plus we had that STIP and that other grant to cover it, versus this year we were tied to just our standard grants from the government. And you can see our budget was 1.9 million and we spent 1.7. That is because we had some projects that were carried over. So I believe a garbage truck, a fire truck, and like even the MCC cabinet, that's the water project. The SCADA portion of that got carried forward into 2025. So nothing too out of the ordinary on this. And so the net surplus of revenue over expenditures for the year was $38,872. And then as for like the individual revenues and expenditures, as we move through the statements, they're going to be presented in a way that we can easily compare more specific items if you want to look into that deeper. The consolidated statement of change in net debt, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. It is the 2 pages prior, just restated. So we have capital asset additions of 5.4 million this year. We had amortization of 3.1 million. So as you can see here, our acquisition is greater than our amortization. So if we're ever at a point where we're amortizing more than we're putting in, that's a problem, because that means our assets are reducing in size. Small loss on disposal of capital assets. Inventory and prepaid expenditures are very small. We don't have a lot of inventory for towns, especially our inventory is related to some of the items that we have at Public Works and like the roadworks items, versus if we were a county, we likely would have large inventory. They have gravel piles and other things like that. So we don't have a huge dollar value. So the use or acquisition of inventory, that's the only, what we're seeing here is the change in inventory, not the actual inventory number. And overall, net debt, as you can see here, of 11.8 million deficit. Statement of cash flows. I don't know anyone that actually likes these. You can look through it. I'm not going to touch on anything specifically. If you look at the capital activities line, you can see in the prior year we had proceeds on disposition. That was 2.755 million. That was the disposal of the new town hall, also known as the Trans-Canada building. So we sold that in 2023. This year we didn't have any capital sales. So capital sales will not be reflective in any of our land held for resale sales. So those were land held for resale. Those are like land assets rather than a capital asset. So that's why there's no proceeds here for the Foxview or 75th Street sale. Okay.
We never at any point take a look at land that we have serviced, that's for sale, and put it in our asset side?
Yes, we do. So the land that is serviced that we have for sale is on the balance sheet. So that would be on page 2.
So like Prosperity Park's in there?
Not yet, because
Okay.
that was subdivided at the start of 2024. So I was going to note that. So Prosperity Park right now is in construction in process. And then as of 2025, once everything is finalized and subdivided, we have to take a portion of what is in construction in progress on capital assets right now and allocate it to land held for sale. Because obviously that Prosperity Park, there was on-site, off-site, and the lift station. So the lift station is an asset, off-site is an asset. On-site, we have roads and other structures that are an asset, but then we also have the land portion of it that would be considered land held for resale. So McKinley and I have a huge project this spring, and we're gonna pull that part out and classify it on that part of the balance sheet.
Okay.
And then we wouldn't amortize it. So yes, that is an excellent question. Okay, so unless there's any other questions with this cash flow, I'm gonna continue on. This page here, schedule of changes in accumulated surplus. This is the big one. So this is the doozy as a result of our asset retirement obligation. I know, exciting things here. So we'll look into it in note 12 a little bit better, but you can see at the very top, it says balance beginning of the year and then prior period adjustment. So we started the year with 58.98 million, but after the restatement, we're at 54.325 million for accumulated surplus. So there's almost a $5 million adjustment as a result of the asset retirement obligation. So if you look at 2023 statements, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that our ARO was listed in somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million liability, and now it's a $7.5 million liability. So this is where things have gotten tricky. So at the very bottom of the page, you can see the negative 1.45 million. That is our unrestricted deficit. We now have, because of the asset retirement obligation, a negative deficit. And you can also see that our restricted operating reserves and capital reserves at the very top were 1.5 and 3.5 million respectively at the beginning of the year. And if you look at the very bottom line, they're now 58,000 and 348,000. So we had to get an unqualified audit opinion, had to take all of our operating and capital reserves and move them to unrestricted to cover that deficit. And then the 1.45 deficit that you see here, as you know, we can pull up to $2.5 million for our forced main. And by doing that, we'll be able to cover the deficit and replenish our reserves back to almost where they were. So that, as well as other land sales that we hope are occurring this year, we can reclass that all back. But for 2024 year end, I will be bringing an RCD to council next week to allow us to take all of our reserves and put them in unrestricted to cover the deficit. So the numbers that you see remaining at the very bottom, the 58,054 for reserves and operating, that is the library's one. So I wasn't confident that that was one that the town could just move, because I think we do have an external agreement with the library to have their reserve carry forwards. And then under restricted capital reserves is the fire agreement and the reserve with the Heather Curling Club. So it's 240,000, which is our County of Minburn fire agreement, that $80,000 every year that we have to put in. That's where that balance is sitting. And then 828,000 with the Heather Curling Club. So that's the Heather Curling Club reserve. 50% of that was contributed by them, 50% by the town. So those are the three reserves that we left on the books. And this was one of the ones where it said, council can agree. You do have the power to allow that RCD to be challenged and not go through, but then I'm not confident that we would get an unqualified audit opinion. So this is the doozy, unfortunately.
So why would the accountants of the world or of Canada want us to take on this asset retirement obligation to put us in a negative position? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
I know it really doesn't, but I think what happened, or what is the driving factor behind these changes, is all the amalgamations of little hamlets into counties, and then counties taking on these huge liabilities and not having anything set aside, which I don't think that this asset retirement obligation will solve any of those problems, because those hamlets or towns or villages that are getting amalgamated, I doubt that they would have the surplus to pull this through anyways. So I don't think that's solving problems right now, but it may solve problems in the future.
Go ahead, Councilor Rudy.
Yeah, to that point, the asset retirement obligation, is this a requirement for any other sector besides municipal? Because I can't imagine, like, as a business owner, of course you would want to be very aware of your assets and be able to replace if you needed to. But it's hard to imagine, it's hard to imagine assets that might be jointly owned, for example, irrigation districts down south, all of the extensive infrastructure that they hold separate from the province and separate from municipality. Do they have to do this too?
I know that education is required to do it. It's becoming more and more prominent throughout. I haven't done a deep dive. I don't know if in the public sector, do you know, McKinley?
Yeah, arrows is what we call them. They're very big in the oil field. It gives finance people a lot of jobs, because they're the ones that go in and they're the ones that are estimating how much it'll be for them to retire all these oil field sites, to return them to their original soil. Reclamation falls directly under arrows, and it has to go on their financial statements, because they have to say how much this is going to cost them in the future years. How accurate that number is where the gray lines come in. This is where the finance people put their brains to work, and they're using their discount rates, they're using their interest rates, and they're projecting future numbers, which isn't easy to do. But yeah, it's a pretty big area of accounting in the oil field space. We have always had it in municipalities with lagoons. They made it this year more encompassing with adding the buildings and the asbestos. That's where our number gets so much bigger. But yes, it is prevalent in other areas on a much bigger scale.
I thought in the oil field, you just had to change your name 4 times and turn them all over to the Orphan Well program. No? No, okay.
If only it was that easy.
It has been around here. Yeah. Okay, well, we're not happy with it, and we knew that this asset retirement obligation that we have was gonna really affect our bottom line when we looked at it. And Are they expecting us to collect taxes?
Not at this point, because I can prove that we can pull a debenture to cover that
Yeah,
surplus.
but at some point, a municipality is gonna be forced to tax their asset retirement obligation.
There is a portion of the annual expenditure, the, like, so to say, we call it amortizing it every year for the time value of money, so that will be included in the 2026 budget line. So there is something that will be taxing our ratepayers for, yes.
I do have a question then about that. So this speaks volumes to the necessity when we're dealing with developers or even volunteer organizations that might be with the best of intentions, creating parks or assets that we acquire as a municipality, that we are very prescriptive about what we're willing to accept as appropriate infrastructure, because ultimately, whatever we accept becomes our responsibility and therefore a download onto our residents, current and future. So I guess that all speaks to the bigger picture, so that everybody who is sitting by watching this meeting with excitement, that we need to be very careful, because we're not willing to accept an asset that's not designed with our best intentions and future residents in mind. Because if we're gonna start taxing for asset retirement obligation to this magnitude, it is huge.
Absolutely.
We never get to depreciate it, do we?
It
The
is,
obligation, does it depreciate?
it depreciates, but it grows. Because it's the time value of money. So a dollar today is not a dollar tomorrow. So if it's gonna cost us $5 million today, 30 years from now, it's gonna be 30 million, right? Like so it's depreciating, and that the depreciation is what gets put on our annual budget.
The depreciation in this actually means more debt.
Correct.
Okay, you never get to lessen the liability in the obligation.
If we sell the building,
Okay, I got you.
yeah.
So this is why I was lighting my hair on fire in it before. And I'm sorry, we still haven't done what we have to do. It's not gonna fall on them, it's gonna fall on us. We still need to push that conversation. It is still crap that it's there. It is crap that the auditors have said to us, oh, we have to because it's under the municipal legislation. The municipal guys have just said, hey, it may affect your ability to get something in the future, but have also, on the same token, have yet to actually accept responsibility for it. So there needs to actually be push from our sides when we're thinking about what topics we have when we have these 5-minute useless meetings with these guys. This needs to be some of the stuff that we push on. Because the reality is, once again, we could have provincial leaders making decisions because they're looking at the city or whatnot and not necessarily understanding how this paper item is gonna impact a small community. And I want one of them to own it up and either say that the assessors have made this up themselves because it sounds great for themselves, or accountants, or any of the rest of whoever it may be, or take liability and say it is under this department. Because right now, we've been told it's them. Right now, they say it may or may not, and they are not even taking ownership and saying it is. So I still don't understand to this day why we've accepted any of that, but we've had to because we didn't want to be the last guys in the gate. But that doesn't mean we leave it. We need to push this because someone has to give us an answer. This is like very detrimental, and we're saying, well, okay.
Councillor Bullock.
Sounds like this might be a good resolution to put together for Alberta Munis to push back on this.
Well, I just know that this could affect your collection of taxation if you get yourself in a real negative position when you probably don't plan on tearing down your lift station in the near future. But anyways, we can't blame it on you. And again, we'll have to take it up with somebody bigger than this department.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because an unqualified against a qualified, I mean, the province says they're not recognizing if we get a qualified. I mean, we'd all like to have an unqualified, but
They to this date have not said you won't get your grant. They said you may not get it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, may. Never once have we been told you actually won't get it.
well,
Then eventually we will, and without us, but effectively, this has taken away all of our savings. So it's like all of a sudden, if there's something budgeted that's coming out of reserves this year, I might have to tell people to hold on those projects because how are we gonna fund it if we have to have it in unrestricted? So there is definitely some ramifications of that. I'm hoping that I'm gonna do some more calcs once I do that debenture draw and make sure if that puts us back on side, we should be fine, but
Well, I would inform the auditor when they come here to have some answers, like, how does this benefit anybody in this municipality, any taxpayer in this municipality? How does it make them feel better about the work that we're doing?
yeah. Well, unfortunately, I don't think the auditors will have those answers either, because we're, as accountants, we're just required to follow that framework. So unless they're sitting on a board that made that decision, I doubt that they'll have any more additional info than we do.
Go ahead.
To your point, that this is not making the lives of our citizens better, potentially protecting them in the long term, but the increasing the amount of unrestricted reserves goes counter. It's the antithesis of what we've been trying to do the last few councils, which is specifically target our reserves towards future projects so that we are being more prudent than the province has identified some municipalities, not the town of Vegreville, for having large unrestricted reserves that are not collected or allocated towards any projects. So this actually opens us up again to putting them back to unrestricted, unallocated.
Well, it's just because it's zero. Right now, we're negative, unrestricted, so we're just trying to cover the deficit. So I will not be changing my reserve lead sheet. We're moving everything. I'll do an RCD and a journal entry to move it for the end of December 31st, 2024, and I'll reverse it out as of January 2025. And I will do a calculation and see when we pull that debenture, if we're back to unrestricted as positive. It's all things as normal, but until that debenture is pulled, until I do that full calculation through, I will not know the full answer to that, but like 1.4 million negative, and we're able to take up to 2.5 million for the forced means. So we should be positive again once we have that debenture proceed.
So that is a problem because, sorry.
We should be positive, but in the real world, we'll be right where we should be.
Yes.
I mean, it's just this artificial debt that we're carrying
Yes.
for no apparent reason.
And that nobody is going to say thank you. Like, to be honest, I think the part that's missing here is both, like, you know, to Councillor Warwas, I mean, when we had this conversation before, that there has been no transparent conversation about mandating municipal government to keep this as a on-the-books expense. But for the average person, I mean, we're all struggling to understand why and the implications here. But the very political part of this is actually completely divorced from what we're doing here. So citizen X comes and, for example, would show up at Councillor Lemko's door and be able to provide their insights about this very complicated information, might think that we are not being prudent, but we've been we've been very judicious about making our decisions and ensuring that our reserves are all dedicated towards specific areas of expenditure. So I think that we need to put a pin in this.
We need to start a new reserve.
So yeah, the ARO reserve?
The
I think
arrow.
we're gonna call it oh, sorry, that was just gonna be a little bit too sassy. I was gonna say
Okay.
CMA.
Well, we're not gonna fix it at this meeting, so let's just keep moving. Again, it's, this has a lot more negativity to the bottom line than I ever seen coming, I'll tell you that. And there's no way that any business would carry this type of accounting.
Unfortunately, with some of the, like, in public settings, they actually require cash in a separate account for these. So I know if you're opening up a gravel pit, like you have 150,000 or 300,000 in immediately just cash.
Reclamation fee.
Yeah, so like this isn't something specifically new, but it's definitely new for municipality, and I'm thankful that we don't actually have to fund that $7 million because we would be broke. We would have no money, so.
Let's just keep moving. We're not
Tangible
gonna
capital
solve
asset.
this today.
No.
But we are going to,
We better bark about it.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm not gonna go into details of the ARO on this schedule. We all know what that is. I am going to talk about the acquisition of capital this year. So it's the first line down under buildings, so $14,340 was spent. That was for the addition of FCSS and IP&D security wall. So I'm on page 7, schedule 2, right here.
Good.
So, buildings, 14,000, that was IP&D and FCSS security walls. Engineered structures, we have 452,000 and some change. So we did 47th Ave, 52nd Street manholes, and some sewer lining in the year. Machinery and equipment, what we have in there is a Whibbit, a parts washer, a mower are our three big ones. Vehicles, we had a GMC Sierra purchase this year, and then construction in progress is Prosperity and Forced Main. And as I've alluded to earlier, there are portions of Prosperity that will be broken out into construction or into land held for resale as the subdivision was official in early 2025. So we'll pull those costs out once we're allocating everything. That is going to be an absolute huge project this year because we have to take all of those costs and allocate them to sewers, storm, roads, everything. So that is, I'm very glad to have McKinley on board because that is going to be our entire summer. As I noted, all these restatements here are due to the ARO, building and landfill assets. So this is all, the ARO is integrated into our tangible capital asset schedule. So that's all I'm going to talk about here. The disposals that are at the second last line, that's the manhole disposal. So we replaced some manholes this year. So most of the manholes were fully depreciated. There was the one that was just $6,000 left. So that is where we're at. So, oh, I flipped the wrong way. I'm almost done, I promise. On to Schedule 3, so we have property and other taxes. So you can see overall the bottom line, we had a budget of 9.839 million and we collected 9.848 million. So that increase is due to 3051 changes by the assessors. So any kind of changes that are made after we do the property tax bylaw, we either levy, it results in extra levy or repayment of levies. So thankfully this year it resulted in extra levies for us. So that is where that's at. And then some of the savings were also through the Alberta School Foundation. So their requisitions actually went down last year. They went up this year though, don't worry, because there was something to do with our population with the census. So we had less payable, but they've gone back up. So just a little blip on the map. The next page, page 9, is schedule of government transfers. So the very first line, you can see we had a budget of 52,550 and an actual of 12,600. This is all due to Canada Summer Jobs. So we had very limited funding in 2024, and for 2025 we were approved for, coming up this year, we're actually approved for 21,000. So that's almost double from last year, but still not great. Provincial government funding, those have been all kind of on budget as we were very close to actual for our projects this year. So we didn't have a lot of ongoing. So overall, variance from budget is due to carry forward projects, including garbage and fire truck, and then MCC SCADA portion. So that's all I got for that one. Schedule 5. Everything you can see budget to actual for different types of expenses. The one that I wanted to point out midway down the page, other transactions, allowances, and adjustments. Budget was 101,800. Actual was 236,799. This is due to a $200,000 entry for the cost of land sold for the commercial lot just right down the road here. So that's the old Full Throttle building. So we sold at a cost, the cost of the land. So we recognize the revenue and the expense on the balance sheet. So once again, this is an accounting thing. So obviously that sale was not budgeted, but we have revenue to accommodate it on our overall financials. But on the expenses side, it looks like it's overstated. Schedule 6, this is all the revenues and expenditures broken out by department and different types of things. So I'm not going to go into too much depth there. And then we're into the notes. So I'm going to try and make this real quick. So significant accounting policies, this note 1, this is all CPA stuff that is just our accounting policy. So I'm not going to go into any detail on those. If you ever need to fall asleep at night, you can go ahead and read them. Item 2 is recent pronouncements not yet adopted. So as we all love changes proposed by the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. They are doing a new one, and it is the Conceptual Framework for Financial Reporting in the Public Sector, and PS 1202, Financial Statement Presentations. So once again, 16. So once again, they are changing some things on us. I don't think it's actually going to require like a $4 or $5 million restatement, but we may have to present our statements differently in the coming years. So it's for 2026 onwards, but I think we'll just early adopt if we can, just in this next year, so that we don't have to do a whole bunch of work later on. So more fun things for McKinley and I to read on. As of right now, I don't believe that it'll impact our bottom line the same way the ARO has done it. So, moving on to note 3 on page 17. So cash and cash equivalents. You can see there's a decrease in the year, as we alluded to with the completion of projects and not pulling debentures. What else do I have here? So note 6, land held for resale and development. You can see it's decreased, so that's due to the sale of the 2 lots. This is just all the same information over again. Page 18, you can see trade accounts payable and accrued liabilities have decreased. That's the repayment of holdbacks. And then page 18, note 8. So this is where Councillor Curtis was asking about vacation time and people using it. So you can see in 2023, the balance was $271,000 for vacation, and it's down to $205,000. So that decrease is CAO Ling implementing those changes. So it was a 2-year plan to get your vacation down to less than 10 days carry over, and it has been working. So hopefully by the end of this year, we'll see another decrease. And then accumulated sick leave, you can see here. So the increase there is because there's more people with sick time in their banks, but once again, that is a non-vesting benefit, so if somebody leaves our organization, we do not pay that out to them. And that is noted there in the note. Deferred revenue, you can see we've spent a lot of money this year, so that was the AMWIP and MSI, so those funds have all now been spent. And we don't have LGFF or any of those deferreds right now, because those are actually receivables on our statements for 2024. So that is where we're at with that. Note 10 is long-term debt, so not a lot to see here. We've been repaying debt for the last several years and haven't taken any new debentures. So debt limits, we'll touch on that. So our debt limit has been steadily increasing with the repayment of our debt and not taking new debentures. So as of right now, we have 19.44 million of unused debt limit, and our debt servicing that's unused is 3.8 million. So those amounts have been increasing every year with repayment. And then note 12, once again, is all the things about the asset retirement obligation. So it talks about the landfill in the lagoon, asbestos in buildings, and then the table summarizes the total value. So 7.2 million, and then you can see the accretion expense, so it's 257,970. That's the expense in 2024, and 2023 is 248,995. So that is taking into account closure and post-closure costs for the landfill, as well as like remediation of any of our buildings that are pre-1991. So for any asbestos or other liabilities. Note 13 is just our equity in TCA. So this is our capital assets restated in another way, and our accumulated surplus, same thing. So note 14. And other than that, we have segmented disclosure, salary and benefits on page 22. So that's where we disclose all of our counselors and director and managers' salaries. And that is also a note that is required by the Public Sector Accounting Board standards. And then the remainder on page 23 onwards is really just extra information. So talking about LAPP, financial instruments, contingencies, approval of statements, budget amounts. And then on page 24 is the modified retroactive restatement. So that goes into every single line item that has changed from 2023 and how it's been restated. So this is as a result of our asset retirement obligation changes. And that continues on to page 2025. So honestly, without a spreadsheet, even I can't follow these. I've vetted the numbers, but it is it's a lot to go through. And then we also have a subsequent event note. So this is to cover us with Wild and Company giving us an unqualified opinion, saying that we have approved debenture borrowing bylaws on the Force Main totaling 2.5 million. So that will cover our deficit and unrestricted surplus. And then the town, so that the town plans to draw on that debenture to cover the capital cost of the project. And then there is also with Prosperity Park, as you know, we have a contingent deposit on another lot in Prosperity. So that is detailed in that second note, saying in 2024, one lot was sold and the final transfer of the property and sale proceeds was complete in 25. And that a second lot has a conditional sales contract. So the total sales proceeds of that, so the original sale plus the deposit on the new one is 304,000. So these contracts will be recognized in 2025 when the final contractual obligations are released. So that is all that we have to disclose in relation to the subsequent event, because as of right now, the deposit is the only thing that is assured on any conditional sales that we have.
So what was our overall surplus from in our last fiscal year that was not left in a carryover on a project? $38,872.
Which number?
The surplus deficiency or revenue over expenses, 38,872. Is that what?
Which page are you on?
Page 3.
Page 3. Yes, that's this year's, yes. Yeah, for
That's what-
2024, yes.
That's what we had. That wasn't set for a carryover into this year. That's what we had left over the taxes we collected.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
you did pretty darn good.
Yes,
Okay,
and I
so-
apologize for it being so confusing, but just
No,
with all those restatements, it's,
Yeah, it is.
It's not your fault.
I know, but it's still it's hard to explain. Even we have a hard time with it.
Okay, well, I don't think there's any questions right now. Thank you for the presentation. And, again, we'll have to talk to, some government officials, especially McIver, about how this looks moving forward, because, I mean, if we take on any more assets and buildings, we're just gonna push ourselves into a bigger deficit. At one time, being a tangible capital asset doesn't really cover the other side of the obligation. Go ahead, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. Just to clarify for me as well, do we need to show that we have this money in a reserve, or do we need to show that we're able to service it if necessary?
No, it just needs to be on the books as a liability. So initially, when we the ARO is not new for the town. Like the one time that we had set it up years ago before the standards had changed, we did have a reserve for that, but we reclassed that as well. But it's the liability, and the only thing that you have to show is that accretion expense every year. So that's that $250,000. But it's big. Like it's not a small amount.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to
Taxes.
taxes.
Okay, so I have a memo here talking about the 2025 assessment and taxation highlights. I'll get into the bylaw next, but consistent with the MGA, the 2025 assessment reflects the market value of property as of July 1st, 2024 for the 2025 taxation year. So this assessment was undertaken by externally contracted assessors, the Municipal Assessment Group, Assessment Services, Inc. Overall taxable assessments increased by 10.41% from 2024. Residential assessments increased 12.129%, and non-residential increased by 6.81%. For 2025, residential assessments make up 68.8% of total taxable assessment, and non-res accounting for 31.2%. So this is actually comparable to 2024 values. the taxation bylaw. On November 25th, 2024, Town Council approved the 2025 operating budget and must approve a taxation bylaw annually to raise the necessary funds to provide the services approved in the budget. As in prior years, the levy is split 47% residential and 53% non-res. The small business tax discount remains at 20%. And as of right now, the vacant and derelict property bylaw or subclasses that we passed, those will take effect for 2026. So those are not accounted for in this property tax bylaw, because now that it's approved, the assessors will take that into account when they do their assessments this July. So we do not have to take that into account right now. 2025 provincial education tax levy. Pursuant to MGA, the town is required to levy to pay the provincial education requisition. The 2025 education requisition increased by approximately $198,000 or 9.97%. MD of Minburn foundation requisition for the Homestead Lodge decreased by approximately $73.50, so 3.68% this year. As noted in 2 above, budget requirements are established by Town Council when the budget was approved, or the operating budget was approved. Changes in assessment values do not have any impact on budget requirements. For example, sometimes it's assumed that when overall tax assessments increase, that there's corresponding increase in taxes levied. This is not the case. Once budget is approved, the tax levy is set to collect the amounts required to satisfy the budget requirements. This year, you can note that the mill rates have decreased even with an increased assessment and increase in net taxes payable. We do have a 2.5% tax increase included in the 2025 net operating budget. So I have here in item 6, for example, the following illustration is a tax analysis based on an average single-family residential assessment class with a rounded assessment of 218,420, which was 2024 was 195,460. So you can see there was a jump in assessment. These are their proposed property taxes. So the municipal levy, 2025, 1810 versus 1772 in 2024. So it's $38, which is a 2.1% increase. So that's actually less than our budgeted increase of 2.5. The education requisition, so that's on top of our municipal taxes. So this year it's $534. Last year it would have been $486. So that's a $47 change, which is 8.85% increase. So the education, we're definitely seeing that increase that they warned us about. And then Minburn Foundation, this year is $57.62. Last year is $61.26. So it's actually $3.64 less. So it's a 6% decrease. So as we had noted, MD did reduce their requisition a little bit this year, but that is a significant decrease even with the increased levies, or increased assessment. So it's important to note that while the town levies the tax for the provincial education and the MD of Minburn, it is required to do so by provincial legislation and has no control over the amounts by either requisitioning authority, and our tax rates are set based on the municipal levy portion only. So we can see here for residential, even with an increase in assessment, they are only charged 2.1% more when we had a 2.5% increase in net taxes this year. So that shows our population growth. So we did have some additional residential additions this year, so that helped spread that tax burden throughout.
As Councillor Riddick likes to say, we're capturing the growth.
Yes. Okay.
I wanted to say it for you. I know you were going.
I was about to
The
say.
next couple of years, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I do think, though, that I like to see it broken down that way because it helps a little bit when we are explaining it to people. Because sometimes, as you know, we get the ongoing, because people only know what their final dollar is. They don't really think about the breakdown. And I mean, the fair statement is, while we've done a lot to not be like some of the other municipalities have had large increases, it's also fair to say on this example you used, there still is I'm not the math person, but it's 30% of what is charged out has nothing to do with the municipality or close therein, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's kind of something interesting to be able to say, because 30% of what that bill is, we don't have no control over, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I was trying to dig here quickly and see is the grants in lieu of taxes, or in place of taxes, as compared to the education levy. Is it almost exactly the same? I couldn't grab the number right now.
Let me just open my worksheet.
Because I feel like that was a gift, very much appreciated from the province, however, take us away with the other hand.
Well, and it's a increase on a percentage, and then even more next year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Apparently I had my thing closed. I will look at it for you. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
I will get you
Yeah.
that answer. Okay,
No, but
moving
that's-
right along.
Taxpayers
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So I'm going back to note 7 now. In addition to collecting taxes for its own municipal purposes, the town of Vegreville also collects levies on behalf of MD Minburn Foundation and Provincial. The total tax dollars to be collected on behalf of all of these authorities is 11.817 million. The allocation of these tax dollars between town of Vegreville and other authorities is illustrated in Schedule 1. So if you look at the end of the document, and I'm sorry that it's sideways, you can see, I don't even have it printed out. So the 6.5, oh yeah, we can do that. Thank you, Sandra. So you can see percentage increase in the net municipal taxes is 2.5. Minburn Foundation, 207 versus 221, 6.5% decrease. Designated industrial properties decreased by 5%. So this is education, ASFF is the public, and then the EICS is the Catholic. So residential, 10.2% increase over last year, non-residential, 9.6% increase over last year, and then the separate side is 9.5 and 10.8%. So in total, overall, the gross 2025 taxation requirements year over year is an increase of $429,483, or 3.6%. So, but that does not equate to a 3.6% tax increase, because we've captured some of the growth. So in this single family residential explanation that I had in item 6, instead of 3.6, they have a 2.89% increase. So there was some growth to our residential pool, which helped spread those increases out. Schedule 2 has the analysis of the tax rates, so we'll get to that shortly. The basis for establishing is the 47 and 53. And then there is the non-residential subclass. It's split between small business and non-residential. So we'll get to that. I don't want to have to scroll back and forth. And then item 9, combined assessment. In 2025, the combined assessment and tax notices are planned to be mailed May 8th. The assessment date will be 7 days after mailing, and the appeal date will be 60 days. So that will be July 15th, 2025, in accordance with provincial regulations. This will provide 67 days from the mailing date for property owners not satisfied with their assessment to formally appeal their assessment. As noted, it's their assessment they get to appeal. They do not get to appeal the levy. So even if they are successful with an assessment appeal, most of the time they're complaining that their assessment is too high, they're paying too much taxes. A small change in assessment does not necessarily mean a big change to your overall tax bill. 2025 property taxes will be due no later than the last business day in June, which is June 30th this year, and penalties will apply to late payments in accordance with our bylaw. And then, as always, we have a tax installment payment plan, and owners, we encourage them to sign up for that, and we take monthly withdrawals of their taxes. So going back to Schedule 2 now, you can see the rates. So for residential, we have general of 8.28, Minburn Foundation is 0.2638, and school is 2.4450. So combined tax rate of 10.9972 compared to 2024 rate of 11.8706. So our mill rate has gone down. Small business, so it's 17.2094. Minburn is 0.2638, and non-residential school tax 3.8537. So we're at 21.3269 versus 21.5501. We've also gone down for the 2025 combined rate for small business. For other non-residential, we have 21.5064, 0.2638, and then 3.8537, so 25.6239, which is also down from 2024 of 25.9479. So far, all of our mill rates are actually lower than prior year. But we do have increases in assessments. So overall, their bills are changed similar to what I had in option 6 on my memo. But overall, all of our mill rates are down.
And hopefully, we're gonna reflect closer next year in our assessment.
That is correct. So then the next attachment is the bylaw, which unless somebody wants me to do some light reading right now, all the rates that we just spoke about are in this bylaw, and I can read this extensively at the council meeting next week.
That's probably for the best.
Thank you.
Read it all, though, it'll be good.
I do love to talk, but I don't know about this.
Okay, any questions on the tax bylaw? It's nice to see the mill rate coming down. It really is. We need to work more with our assessor, but, okay,
Thank you.
thank you. CAO Ling.
Thank you, Your Worship. The topic today is the draft municipal policing committee bylaw. So, excuse me, the background on this is the town of Vegreville has been approved by the Honorable Minister Mike Ellis to establish a municipal policing committee. At the last legislative committee meeting held on April 8th, administration presented a draft of the municipal policing committee bylaw and policy manual. Consensus of council resulted in the following amendments to the draft documents. The MPC shall consist of 6 members appointed by council, 4 of them to be members of town council and 2 members of the public. Members of the MPC will receive remuneration in accordance with the town of Vegreville council remuneration policy. For members of council, all in-town meetings are covered in the annual remuneration. Public members will be compensated at $200 per day. Administration has also added that meetings may be attended via electronic means. This will assist in scheduling and accommodating all members to attend the meetings. Town Council has requested further information about provincial members, and administration is able to provide the following update. Provincial members must abide by the same roles and responsibilities as all council-appointed members. Therefore, provincial members are voting members. If council opposes a specific provincial member, a formal request to reconsider a provincial appointment may be forwarded to the minister, outlining concerns and identifying risks. Conversely, if council wanted to recommend a provincial appointment for the minister's consideration, they would also have to submit this request in writing. After all 3 readings of the draft bylaw, council will appoint 4 members. Administration will advertise and recruit 2 public members, and administration will work with all members to complete enhanced security checks. The financial implications, all costs incurred by the MPC are the responsibility of the town of Vegreville. Given that the town of Vegreville has already passed the 2025 budget, all expenses incurred for this year will be unbudgeted. If council is in favor of the remuneration model outlined in the new draft, this committee could incur up to $1,600 for meeting attendance, excluding provincial appointments, or $3,200 for meeting if the minister appoints 2 provincial members. There will be additional costs for enhanced security checks, but the Provincial Security Intelligence Office has confirmed that the Government of Alberta will be paying for enhanced security checks during the initial rollout of these policing committees. As outlined in the draft policy manual, the chair of the MPC will be expected to prepare an annual budget proposal to council to present annually during the budget process. Communication strategy, this bylaw will be implemented through level 1 public engagement process. After the MPC bylaw receives all 3 readings, administration will excuse me. Administration will notify the Minister's Contract Policing and Policing Oversight Unit of our progress. Administration will also advertise for the public at large members by means council deems reasonable. So public engagement process level 1, which is social media posts, or 2, public engagement process level 2, which also includes ads in the local newspaper. All MPC meeting dates and agendas and minutes will be available on the town website. Excuse me. So, the option.
Option, the town council review proposed amendments to draft XX 2025 municipal policing committee bylaw and move forward with all 3 readings at the next regular council meeting. So, thank you so much, CAO lady. So how does everybody feel about the way that this is being set up? Is everybody good with it? Go ahead.
Thank you. I just have one question, maybe I'm reading this wrong, about the remuneration. Are we saying that if the province appoints 2 members that we would pay them that remuneration?
Yes, if they're covered under the bylaw and the policy, they would be paid the remuneration as well.
That is only if they come here. It's not if they do it over electronic means. Because I feel like they're not going to show up to these meetings, and I don't think that they should get $200 to sit on a screen. So.
Well, especially if they're not from our community.
Yeah.
So this part is a little bit confusing to me. So it reads that all members of the municipal policing committee, I almost said commission, Freudian slip. Yeah, Freudian slip, I think, will receive remuneration. The other part that I wonder about that is, so if they're being remunerated in the same way that any of our, so if they're being remunerated under the policy that we've devised, are they also expected to have the same behavior? Are they expected to adhere to our same behavior conduct? And the other part that I'm curious about is, thank you for asking this question, about if we opposed the appointment of a specific member, it's very difficult to imagine that it would happen, a response would happen quickly, and it would not be public. So there would be no way for us to be able to privately lodge our complaint or concern or offer an alternative. This would all be very public. So it's hard to imagine that if we didn't agree with an appointment, that it wouldn't be very public, that it wouldn't be very obvious that the town of Vegreville does not approve of appointment X. So I feel a little bit just uneasy about what that's going to look like moving forward. There's a lot of external decision-making and ramifications that will be felt for the town of Vegreville that we have no control over. I don't like that.
And part of this too is this because it's in its infancy, and no provincial members have been appointed yet. The committees that we've been reaching out to, or the other communities we've been reaching out to with committees, they're sitting in the same boat as well. So this is going to be a little bit of a build the bridge as we walk across it type things. So.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
I'm just thinking that the province, for their 2 appointed people, they should probably just cough that up and pay that end of it themselves.
Okay, Councillor Berry, that's probably not going to happen, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was looking at that as if we have the right to not accept an appointee, that maybe they should be providing the names of their appointments to council so that before the appointment actually occurs, so that it would not have that time where they're on the committee and then we're trying to get them removed from the committee. If the council was objecting to one of their potential appointees, that we should be able to block it before they're actually even on the committee.
Okay, yeah. So, any changes that you want to have done to this, we'll be voting on it on Monday. So it's do we want to engage just level 1, a social media post, or a level 2 with that and ads in local newspaper? Go ahead.
I think we've got to go level 2. I think both, because we've heard, or I've heard from members of the public that still rely on the original means of reaching out, and we want to ensure that we have the appropriate applicants for this committee.
Everybody good with that option, number 2?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. So we got that down. And now,
I guess I would start on that. The only thing that I might want to see difference is because we do have a section in for virtual. And of course with us, we know we're going to come to it when we can. It doesn't change for us because we don't make anything extra on it, but maybe we could have for members attending in person is 200 and 100 for virtual. And the only reason is for even our own public at large, I'd like to encourage them to be in person to have better conversations, and maybe having a little bit of a price difference will go there. And then for the provincial ones, I know we probably, as much as I agree with my colleague here, I would love to say they pick up. I know we're not going to be able to do it that way, but also I think that it would catch it a little bit. I know we probably are going to target meetings that are after hours, but we don't know that that's exactly what will happen. And by that same token, if they happen to appoint someone who's a paid employee during the day, I don't necessarily want them getting the highest amount. So I don't know, I would maybe consider that to encourage people to come in person.
let's just take the virtual thing right out.
Well, I was gonna suggest that is the other option.
Sure,
You
take it
don't
right
have
out.
to- You can, the rules of the committee can be that you have to attend in person, or you don't, get to say in that meeting, right?
Okay, I guess option 2 on the public engagement, and the only remuneration will be if you attend in person. Are we good with that? Okay.
Sorry, your worship, just for clarification, only remuneration if you attend in person, you would still like us to leave in electronic means? Or would you like us to remove that and then?
Just remove it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll see this on Monday as well then, for all 3 readings. Okay, next up, we have oh, yeah. We have a happy Easter from the mayor of the city of Stry, the community of Stry. With great joy, we greet you on the bright holiday of Easter. We wish peace, hope, and renewal in our hearts, in families, and in our countries. May this spring bring the new strength for cooperation, unity, and mutual support. From the mayor of Stry. And I'm sure that we sent them one. Like my office did, right? My office is so good. We're working on another collaboration right now, and we have some stuff to announce there pretty soon. Dear Mayor McPhee, on behalf of the residents of Stry, and for me personally, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude for your touching Easter message. Your words of solidarity, hope, and support are deeply meaningful to us, especially in these challenging times. The unwavering friendship and unity between our communities transcend distance and bright light and strength in our hearts, and may this Easter also bring renewed peace and joy to the people of Vegreville. We highly value the bond between our cities and look forward to strengthening it further in the spirit of mutual respect and cooperation. Christ is risen. Well, thank you very much. And like I said, we will have some other cooperation with Kalamea that's coming up in the near future, and some school kids, and talking, I think. But more to say on that later. Okay, round table. We'll start with you, Councillor Lemko.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just some positive comments regarding the work being done in our alleys from many residents showing that they like to see what we're doing. Although there might be the odd negative one, I think the majority of residential people know the work we're doing in our alleys. Another note, I did on my walk today on 47th Street, it's unfortunate that we lost two mature trees that have been growing for a number of years. One to black knot, and the other one, I don't know what, maybe it was leaning too much. And we did lose some trees to, unfortunately, vandalism, which continues to grow in our community at an unprecedented rate for some apparent reason. I don't know what motivates people to do that. But all in all, it's the community is starting to look pristine with the amount of work that our public works and our Parks and Rec people are doing with cleaning up lots of the wind-driven garbage in the streets and the snow. So kudos to Edmund.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. Nothing much for me. Took it a little easy this Easter and stayed indoors. It's been very busy, so not too much for me. Did get out and I voted at the advance poll, so I did get to talk to a few people there. It was actually cool to see that any new 18-year-old never voted before, they clap and give applause and as they put their ballot in. So that's kind of something you don't see probably in the big cities. So there's a few kids that went through first time and you could hear the applause. I was like, did I miss it? Is the election over? I wasn't sure. That's all from me.
Thank you. Councillor Rudick.
I had some interaction with people from outside of the community that were very excited to hear what's happening in Vegreville on two fronts. Somebody from Invest Alberta that was telling somebody else all the good things that are happening in Vegreville. So really great to hear that conversation is continuing outside of our community. Sometimes we forget when we're here that big things are happening, as well as sharing some of the information about Provectus. Those folks might be coming back to chat further with our seed department to find out a little bit more about what's happening there, as well as people from out of town that have not been in Vegreville for a long time that were surprised to see how much is happening. So when you drive into town, it's very obvious that a lot of things are happening. They were surprised about construction. They were surprised about how busy 16A is, even on a holiday weekend, and really, even on a quiet weekend like Easter, there was a lot of things happening, and maybe partially due to the election that there were a lot of people by the Sunshine Club, for example, was very busy. But those are the comments I heard from folks this week, as well as a thank you to the specific activity in the back alley in terms of doing the hydrovac for some of the alleys that were really bad. So thank you to our Public Works Department for trying to make things better.
Thank you. Councillor Warda.
I don't have a lot, just a couple little things. Obviously, we've seen more people out because it's getting nice weather. They're walking all over the trails. That's great to see. So, of course, a couple of people reached out just about some of the items we already have booked or ongoing, like the, street sweeping and whatnot. But again, I think we all know that when that snow first goes down, things look a little, dirty and grimy till the first cuts, to the first rains kind of go through. You get all of that out and about. So the only other thing I had a call about was that there's still, as mentioned, just by Councilor Lemko, and everybody has talked about, is that there is like the rise in crime and vandalism. Well, again, we've had a bunch of doorbell ringers and happening again. I did get a specific call though about the fast truck driving around. We still do have some of that. I would say though, and I do not suggest that they are not driving fast around, but one evening was the very next day after getting this call, I heard the vehicle and thought, geez, and I happened to be in a position where I thought I'm going to jump up and take a really good look. In some cases, they aren't necessarily driving that fast. It's the loud vehicle, and it makes it sound super fast, because I was prepared to almost jump out and try and get in my vehicle to catch up and see where this person was going through, and actually they weren't going that fast, they were just really going loud. But I guess that's something we're going to keep encouraging to see our officers dealing with, because it's a safety issue. People walk in the evening. I know it gets a little better as we hit into summer, where it's not dark at 4 o'clock when people are walking around, but just everybody keep in mind that there's little kids, and just be safe. So that's all I got. No other calls.
And I'm pretty sure that the last open house, the RCMP had, they identified 3 trucks, fast and loud, so.
Yeah.
Councillor Bullock.
Thank you. Yeah, the fast and loud, yeah, you hear, if you're sleeping with your window open, you have occasion to hear some of these things happen at night, so. I'd imagine, they'll eventually get their tickets, I'm sure. Anyways, I'd had one spirited but good conversation, the way it ended, regarding some development in town, and I think the friend of mine, the other party, went home with a little different understanding after we finished our conversation, so I think that ended positively. And just, he's a business owner in town, and he'll probably be reaching out to economic development to see what we're doing for businesses, actually, so that's all I got.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I mentioned earlier about the tax program and how great it is with FCSS. I'd like to give a shout out on the soccer side. The important thing about that is they're trying to get the season up and running. They're working on getting the grounds going, and they've got a challenge this year because there's so many young people. There's more age groups in the U5, U7, U8, or U9s that they have to rearrange some of the fields. And the other thing that's making it difficult for them is they've changed, the Alberta Soccer Association's changed some of the dimensions and et cetera for U13, which is making it much more difficult for them. So as much as they've got all those pitches out there, they're full. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty good year of lots of soccer being held out there and with the other communities. And the only other thing I want to mention is just, I think we're all on council probably sad that there was a fire at the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village that did destroy a few of the structures, including the Interpretation Center, which did house quite a number of Ukrainian artifacts. And I'm certain that they will recover from that and get things going and get back up and operational, but it is a sad note that some of that heritage of the area did get lost. So, regrets.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I've been hearing lots of real positive comments lately. One was the new street sweeper. Everybody thought it was quite nice. And lots of conversations with local businesses and local people that are just wondering what's the next thing they're going to see happening. And with our rezoning and subdividing, I think we're going to probably have one of the busiest summers we've ever had. And when it comes to building permits and stuff, and thank God, because it's something that we desperately need right now. So, okay, let's move on to highlights, and we'll start with Director Saskia. What have you guys been doing? Sitting around? No audits to do, no nothing.
I can assure you I've been sitting a lot, but not just sitting around. Not on my hands, at least. As of right now, there's a couple things going on my desk aside from the audit and other items. Land leases. So those are starting in May of 2025. They were up for tender. The due date was April 15th at noon. Due to the short week last week, I was also away on Thursday. I have not opened them yet. So I have had farmers harassing me. Not actually, I've had lots of calls. So I do apologize. I will open and contact the winning bids tomorrow and set up drafts for formal leases for them. So I understand that they want to get out in the field and want to know what land they have and what they don't. And so I do apologize for the delay. I will get to them tomorrow morning. Our contract is also up with Municipal Assessment Services, Inc. So those are our assessors. We normally enter into at least a 3-year agreement. So in efforts to be prudent with our ratepayers, the town administration has begun the process of developing a request for proposal for assessment services. we plan to post on the APC website and include information on our town website. We'll also provide the information to our current assessors as a token of good faith. Like I said, we are just putting this out there to ensure that we are getting good services and a good rate. And the posting will likely be up at the end of April and available for bid for a full month from posting. So if there's any other questions or concerns related to that, if I have council's good wishes to do that, I plan to do that in the next week or so.
Who's all involved in the interviewing process?
I don't know that we have an interview, so they submit, we have a request for proposal, and they submit their bids based on the request that we have, so it's a fairly long document, and then from there, we'll open the bids. So we can involve people that want to be involved if they need to be, but we look at cost and services, et cetera, so there's various metric points in our document.
So we don't ever get the chance to, okay, so we put it out there, it's just on a price that we're looking for, not looking at who may be competent and who may not be competent, because that would make a big difference.
Okay, so there's many contents. Thank you to Leslie for helping me prepare this. So there's the introduction, which is the invitation, type of contract for deliverables, no guaranteed of volume of work or exclusivity, agreement of internal trade. Then there's the deliverables, the evaluation, stages of proposal evaluation. Part 4 is terms and conditions. Like, it is a 21-page document of what we're looking for. So we
can
have,
find that person just in a tender.
we are gonna,
We could reach out to other municipalities and see,
yes, we've already done that research. So we plan to put that tender out to other ones that we have seen that have had good reviews from other municipalities as well, so.
okay, go ahead, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you very much. Do we get a different rate for like a 3-year, 2-year, 1 year? Have you seen that in the past?
That'll all be determined on these bids. So for the most part, I don't want to be looking at having to secure a contract every year. So I would say, I think this one is a 3-year one.
I'm just, don't, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just interject here. The majority of assessment contracts are actually for 5 years. So 3 years is, excuse me, is about as low as you would like to go in terms, because they also have to have time to learn the community as well. So there's a learning curve on there. So doing it 1 to 2 years isn't enough time for them to.
I just don't want to get caught in what we've been caught in prior, right? That's all. Even our previous assessor, if we give them a 1 year and say, let's move on this and keep moving this forward. I just don't want to say, we signed a 3-year, we signed a 5-year, and we're back in the same boat, and they don't know the community, and they don't raise the assessment properly, and everybody's down our throats about taxes again. So that's my concern.
We also have this history now. We know what happened, and we can watch for it, and we'll know the triggers once we start to see that again as well.
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you. And that's all I've got.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, next up, Director Lefebvre.
You want to read this for me? No, I didn't think so.
I could if I tried.
A few things on the go, just some housekeeping. Basically, we're working on the annual report information that goes out every year at the office. We're finalizing the draft fleet asset disposal policy. They'll be going off to SMT this week. We'll give them 10 days or so. I want by the next ledge meeting to have it hopefully ready and out for review. Our request for quotation for our sewer lining project is on the Alberta Purchasing Connection, EPC. It was out on the 14th, so we'll give that a couple weeks and we'll get some information there, because as you know, the sun is shining and things are drying, and the construction season is gonna be going full blast here, as you can see in the community. I just finished the last review, and we have the final tender set drawings for our 2025 capital works project. So we knew that we were going to get it ready to go to tender and then have a discussion with council, which will come at a later date. That just came in. And the community is very busy. The office is very busy with downstairs with development questions, development proposals, like busy than I've seen in a lot of years, which is really good for our community. So instead of listing them all, some I can, some I can't. We're gonna just say that it's busy and we're very excited about this summer for sure. So that's my report.
Okay, well, I know I'm down there a lot, making some requests and trying to get some information so that I don't tell somebody the wrong thing. Which I've learned to do, so. And again, I know it's busy and believe me, we really appreciate it's all going on down there right now, so. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Director Lefebvre, this isn't about your direct report, but I was gonna bring this, either at the next meeting, but I thought maybe I'll just mention today. When I was at the library board meeting, last week, they just had an opportunity to bring something to my attention, ask a few questions, so I thought I'll pass them on to you. Just in some circumstance where they were able to be at the library, they were able to view this happening. That corner, that would be the corner of the library crossing across to A.L. Horton. It's a very busy corner, of course, especially when the school kids are going. They noted quite often that there is, kids lined up. For some reason, everybody slows down right at this corner here because of that little bit of a lift that's right at the crosswalk. But it does seem like the traffic likes to really speed up as it's heading down to there. So what they were talking to us about is if there was like the lights or the crosswalk, and then they kind of noted that there is that there is a stand that's there, and it actually has the button and everything. So I'm just wondering, like, did we remove it at one time, or what the situation was with that, and if what we think the process or considerations could be maybe for looking at that again in budget time, if not.
Yeah, the history on that is that crossing was there when A.L. Horton and Peter Savart schools were functioning. When they shut down and the town took possession of, then when that crosswalk failed, there was no point in repairing it because there's no more schools there. But the best option now is our ones you see on Highway 16A that we've placed out. They're affordable. They work well, and it's an option if somebody would like to write a request to council for consideration, then for sure we can put it in next year's budget.
Okay, I will take that back to them. Thank you.
We haven't seen any grant funding for any of that lately. I know one time there was some special one-time funding for some of those.
The very first satellites there were, and then after that, we've been paying for them out of pocket.
But they're not that much really, were they?
Yeah, I believe like around the 5,000 mark.
Yeah, solar powered and, yeah.
It is quite busy there, though. Like, and it's a wide road too. That's the other
Yeah,
thing
well,
we're getting across.
and again, like even with some of the summer programs and stuff too, there's a lot of children back and forth there, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got, who's doing the food bank on Friday? You, again?
Part of all three.
You're the whole month?
Yep.
No, we're not doing it. I skipped it. Yeah, she's got a tickle in her throat. Okay, so we got the council meeting on Monday, and then the annual pancake breakfast and safety meeting, and that's at the social center? Yes, and it's required for all councilors to be there? There's no fishing there, okay?
Yeah, there's no fish for breakfast.
Okay. Is there any other business of council?
I just have a question.
No, that's not business.
We brought this up the other day, and I'm just wondering if we're at all considering the possibility of a slight time adjustment on Monday night's council meeting. Given that it's election night and we don't start till 7 o'clock, it might be nice, especially for those that either have some requirements or would be with people that would require at least an hour's drive, would be great not finish till like 9 o'clock at night. So I'm just wondering if there's a chance that we could start, an hour early or something, or if that would be a real problem.
Anybody object to starting at 6?
Admin's more, I was wondering, like, if it would.
Yeah, administration's fine with an hour earlier start. And if you guys make the decision, we have ample time to advertise.
Well, looks like the decision's made. There's nobody up here jumping up and down, so that's how we can tell. We're good.
Is an hour enough?
Oh, yeah, nobody gets to talk. We just keep going. Yeah.
We
it'll be
just,
great.
Okay, with that being said, we do have one closed session item, and I'd like to get to it, so I need a motion to go into closed session. Counselor Rudick makes the motion at 2:39. All those in favor? Carry.